We've only just begun.
You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation, as brought to you by the Foundational Friday. Our core aim is to present an experience, an opportunity for your soul to reascend to its place of origin by cultivating a healthier spiritual awareness and emotional maturity. This show serves as a free offering to the greater community and an addendum requirement for all ANU spiritual training students. For all those listening, if you'd like to move closer to the calculations and fundamental understandings of the ANU order, be sure to pick up the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. If you desire a spiritual reading to help you map your current spiritual position in the face of your world and learn the greatest pathways for your fortune in this season, you can go to the saduluhouse.com. That is SADULUHOUSE.com. You can also go to orishareligion.com to find out how you can become a student and member of the new spiritual order. That's ORISHARELIGION.com. Let us begin.
Peace, everyone. Here we are again. I am Yuya, Assaan-ANU, Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order and head instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Institute. And we are now experiencing another Foundational Friday. And that segment that is brought to you by the Enlightenment and Transformation channel on Blog Talk Radio. So we're here again on our Friday. And as always, I am excited and honored to have the opportunity to present to you all and to bring a level of information to you that will hopefully prove useful and valuable in your spiritual journey. In this session, before I actually get into the topic that we're going to be discussing, which is actually your guardian angel or your guardian spirit, however you like to consider it and look at it. But I wanted to tap into what that meant, and how to actually invoke that energy, how to work with that energy, and how to maintain and cultivate it. Your guardian spirit, your guardian angels are often known by many different names, but we're going to get into it, and we're going to get into what it means, and hopefully you'll walk away with something after this session that can really help you in your work. But in any event, I want to first address something that's going on this Sunday. We have the Honorable Mwalimu Bomani Baruti, who will be on the ANU Asafo segment at 1 p.m. Eastern. And this is an elder who I hold in very high esteem and in very high regard. For those of you who have obtained a copy of Grasping the Root of Divine Power, you would have noticed probably in the beginning in my dedications, not only did I mention my beautiful and wonderful and brilliant Empress in the making, Asata, my daughter, but I also mentioned Akabin House, which is an independent learning institution that is centered and based in the Atlanta area, which is ran by Mwalimu Baruti and his counterpart, his light holder, Iniya. And they run a beautiful program there where they educate children. They educate our children, and they teach them what they need to know in order to navigate through this system, in order to navigate through this world. So definitely thankful for that. So yeah, I surely wanted to give just a heads up to everyone who listens to my segment that you want to be a part of that experience on this Sunday at 1 p.m. As we know, the ANU Asafo segment is hosted by the beautiful Omilade and our brothers Ifawumi Oshindele and Wole Mango Ifa. Okay, so they have created a beautiful and wonderful experience every show that they've done, and they are my students. And my affirmation towards them when we began this project of our new Asafo was that their show would surpass my own, and it's well on its way. So I'm happy about that. For any teacher, for any guide, spiritual baba, spiritual mama, or as we say in Cuba, your grandmother, your grandfather, it's what we call our spiritual guides. Our goal and our mission has to be to make individuals surpass us, to make our students better than we are and we were. Very similar to any parent, you want your child to be your next step and a further step for you. You do not want them to stay underneath you forever or beyond the natural time that should occur. And that should be the case for anyone who's involved in any spiritual house or learning institution. Your instructor should not only be coming with a certain level of stoicness and even maybe some isolated type of energy and standoffishness, but don't confuse that for arrogance. Don't confuse that for conceit. Many times as instructors, we have to maintain a distance with our students in order to maintain their respect. Once we become familiar and once we become close, then contempt steps in, and people start to say and do things that they shouldn't because they feel a little bit too comfortable. So in order to properly teach people, in order to maintain the valuable and the honorable student-teacher relationship, oftentimes what we need to do is to kind of be by ourselves a bit, not necessarily let people too much into our private lives and things like that. And as an instructor, as a Jegna, as a leader, most of your work is done in isolation. And that is so hard for people to understand often. They don't understand how much time you actually need to spend alone, even when it looks like you're doing nothing at all. You may just be sitting in a room with the lights off and, no TV on or anything, and people will come on, turn the lights on in here. Why it's so dark in here? Turn the lights on. And not understanding that you are currently doing your Jegna work in that moment. Like I said, the majority of what we do is done in isolation, and our students don't really understand that, not until they get to that level. And what we should be striving to do is to bring everyone to that level and beyond. That is my goal. As the head instructor of the ANU spiritual order, I'm raising up a host of individuals who are powerhouses in their own right. And though for this particular phase of our training, many who are now like in the online phase, because the online adventure and expansion was something fairly new for us at ANU. I had been teaching personal classes, one-on-one group classes in person, in the flesh, for years. And it was just recent that I totally formalized my online presentation. Prior to that, it was just, a little podcast here and there, or me sending out a recorded copy of a class that I may have had at the shrine. But now with our online virtual classrooms, we've actually really taken it to the next level in terms of the services, the teaching services that we're able to provide, and the support via the forums and the live Q&As that we have and things like that. And I know students are saying, we haven't had a live Q&A in a while. No, we certainly have not. And this gives the new students an opportunity to show up better than the old students in terms of the live Q&As and making themselves present and available for them. So, I just really was speaking on just the isolation sometimes it's needed as an instructor in order so that you can do your job correctly. And as you've heard me say many times, it can be a very lonely walk. So if you're going to do this, do it for the love. I have an unconditional love affair with learning, and I have an unconditional love affair with teaching. So regardless of the outcome, regardless of the monetary recompense, I enjoy what I do to the max. I enjoy it to the max. With that said, like I said, and we have Brother Marlimu Baruti, who's a master teacher as well. My Jegna, definitely one of my Jegnas. I'm not going to say my only Jegna, but someone who I constantly big up, because I appreciate the work that he is doing and his family is doing, because he's not doing it by himself. And that, that's to be clear too. Just as I am not. I have a family and I have support. There's no way that I could present all these things to you at the quality and at the level that I present them without the support and the active support. Not just the pat on the back, but the active fielding calls and fielding emails and all the different things that go into this. If I didn't have that support of my family members, I wouldn't be able to do as much as I do. So I think it's critical that we all understand that this is a group effort. This is a family effort. And Mwalimu Buruti, he typifies that. He typifies that initiative. And at the ANU Spiritual Training Institute, what I am striving to do is to create a community of learned learners and a community of dedicated instructors who are offering unconditional service to the community. And that is one of the greatest ways that you can raise up your vibration and your energy. I know many people will tell you to meditate with crystals and to do mantras and to do different breathing exercises, and all of those things work. But I'm going to tell you something. One of the greatest ways that you can raise up your spiritual and soul energy is by unconditional service to humanity. And why is that? And I know it may sound very cliche-ish, or it may sound like a little trick I may be trying to get you to do to be a better person, but that's not at all. When you provide unconditional service to humanity, you function as God. Consider the sun. I use the sun as reference often, and we know that many systems use the sun as reference. When you're dealing with Sunni Islam, or you're dealing with Christianity, the Holy Bible, the holy. Anytime you see that word holy, is coming from the Greek helios, meaning sun. But we have so many different systems that were based around understanding the metaphysical value of the sun. Even the idea of the Most High. Okay, the Most High. But what's the Most High? Or the star of the morning, or the bright and morning star. When we're dealing with the idea of the Most High, we're dealing with the idea of the pineal. Because the pineal organ that sits in the middle of your forehead is your Most High. It is your Most High sun in your body. So that sun regulates your melanin activity. It regulates your organ rhythm and your body activity, as well as your ability to understand and process abstract ideas. This all occurs through the Son of Man. The Son of Man, and man, we're not just speaking about male. When we say man, we mean Memph Alf Nun. Memph Alf Nun. Memph is woman, Alf is man, Nun is child. Man, M-A-N. So the Son of Man, S-U-N, of man, the Son of Man is your pineal organ. So one of the things that, like I said, I strive to do is to make sure that is understood, that metaphysical and that metaphorical reference and analogy, it really speaks to what we are doing with our new spiritual training in terms of raising up groups of people who are self-managed, but then who can also work within a collective, work for a collective. And when you do that, you become the creator, because the Son of Man, that physical sun in the sky, asks us for nothing. And there really is nothing we can do for it. Even though we know that some governments have even went so far as to send bombs into the sun and missiles, trying to create another dwarf sun. How crazy is that? You don't believe me? Look it up. But in any event, trying to disrupt that sun activity. But just like the power of the earth, we really think we're damaging the earth with all this pollution and whatnot. The earth is so powerful, it would just swat you off the surface like a fly. You really think you're doing something with, trying to affect the poles and whatnot? The earth is such a vast and powerful Orisha. Yes, the earth is an Orisha. And the name of that Orisha is Onile, O-N-I-L-E. Okay? And you can always give offering, praise, Adimu to Onile, the power of the earth, or the spirit of the earth. Okay? And notice in that name Onile, you have Ile, I-L-E, I'm sorry. And you know that Ile means house or home. Well, where's your house and home? currently. Right? So in any event, it is that unconditional service that puts you in the place of the metaphorical son of man. Right? It is that unconditional service that we read about in the scriptures of Christianity that the Christ offered to people when the Christ performed miracles for people. And they said, "Who shall we say you are?" And the Christ said, "I am the Son of Man." Right? So that is what we aim to do, is to be the Son of Man, to be the Creator, to be the God, right? And in giving unconditional service to our community, giving unconditional service to our people, we actually walk our feet in the steps of the Most High, right? So very similar to when we engage in coitus, right? Or sexual intercourse, entering the course, right? And if anybody ever wants to give their child an explanation of entering the course, there's a song that I did that's available on Amazon.com by the name of Enter the Course. If you just search my name, Yuya, Y-U-Y-A, and Enter the Course, you can get a copy of that song. I think it's like 99 cents, something like that. But basically, I was a part of a project. It's an ongoing project that I'm still working on, but I release songs as I'm doing it by the name of Rising Sons, Mothers Rising Sons. And the intent of that project was to really create something that mothers who may not have a strong man figure or a conscious and competent man figure nearby, and may have sons or even daughters, they could sit them in front of these melodic instructionals that I was creating, and it will help them to understand things, some of the conversations that they cannot maybe speak to them about. Surely, a woman can raise a child, raise a boy even, but a woman cannot rear and cultivate the manhood inside of a man, a young boy into a man. Only a man can do that. All right. And I'm not taking away from the caretaking and the nurturing that occurs. And in the same instance, a man cannot cultivate and rear a young girl into a woman. He can raise her, he can take care of her, he can protect her, but there are subtle, unspoken, and latent secrets of masculinity and femininity that we don't know about each other, and we're not supposed to know. There's certain lines that are just not supposed to be crossed. You're just certain things you're not supposed to know. So that even goes down to, and I'm just gonna have to get kind of real with y'all in a moment. And not that I'm never real, but sometimes I'm out and I see like men going to the store to buy feminine products for their woman. This is so wrong on so many different levels. And I know you may be thinking, well, what does this have to do with my spirituality? That's just how I do my house. Everything is related to your spirituality. When you cross the gender lines and you blur them, you then confuse the gift that you came to the planet with. However it is that I engage the spirit world, however it is that I function within my spiritual knowing and my spiritual kingdom, it begins as an understanding as a man. So the tools that I utilize start with that expansive reality and understanding of manhood. Okay, of course, we know this would be the north and the east of the Audiopone. Okay, this would be air and fire. So my first reaction as a man and my first tool set that I'm always going to grab is air and fire. Now, notice that fire represents enlightenment and the air represents intelligence or spiritual gifts. Okay, so that tells you something. As a man, my immediate response and reaction to spirituality is using my brain. I immediately start thinking. I immediately start looking for the revelation, for something to be revealed, okay, that will then expand my mind and cultivate my mental. So me coming to the planet as a man, this was the gift that I was given. Now, coming to the planet as a female, and of course, again, those lines should not be crossed. Now, coming to this planet as a female, your first reaction, now we're dealing with the south and the west of the Audiopone, or our directions. The south deals with what? The south deals with the element of earth, and the west deals with the element of water. Now, if you notice, both of these are very deep and dark elements, right? And they are also conduits for travel and growth. Okay, they are wonderful conducers for travel and growth, especially emotional travel, whether we're dealing with how plants come through, or whether we're dealing with how water travels. You notice that both of these elements are actually sensitive to energy and motion, or what we call emotions. That's why when you have plants, it's recommended that you speak to them. Before you drink something, some water, it's recommended that you say a little affirmation or prayer over it in order to charge it. Okay, so these are elements that deal with the emotional state. We know in the West, we're dealing with emotions, but also allowing things to transform and die. That's the water, where we have Olokun and Oya. And in the South, where we have the earth, we're dealing with our struggles of life, the things that we have to put our hand to and do. But also it's dealing with the feet, Eshe, E-S-E. That's the Yoruba word for feet. So that's dealing with the things that we walk. When we walk, we struggle. Okay, because that's moving through the earth. So it's dealing with the things that are not necessarily cerebral, but are physical and emotional and active in that sense. So now what happens when a woman immediately starts to engage into her spirituality, her spiritual knowings, her spiritual understandings? She immediately comes from the place of emotion. That's where she begins her entire journey at. How does this feel? Okay, does this feel right? As Robert Nestle Marley once said, he who feels it knows it, or she who feels it knows it, because her knowing comes through feeling first. If it doesn't feel right, she's not going to mess with it, doesn't want to hear about it. Okay, now the balance of her feeling in the south and the west of our directions, and the balance of his thinking in the north and the east of the directions, gives us that perfect yin and yang symbol, or that clockwise motion, which now draws out that infinite symbol of Ashe. And for those of you who didn't know, the way Ashe actually looks is very similar to the infinity symbol. If you don't know how the infinity symbol looks like, you just take a letter 8 and put it on its side, and you have infinity. Note also that 8 is the number for Obatala. All right. So in any event, so there are things that we can do that will cross the gender lines, or we don't really understand it. You notice, I don't know if you guys notice, but every time I say gender, I say ginger first. Interesting enough, I love ginger. That's my ally herb. I use it for everything. So maybe I'm thinking about some ginger right now. Maybe next time I'll try to say ginger, and I bet you gender will come out. But in any event, crossing those lines distort our spiritual understanding and our spiritual starting points. Okay, and it's not to say that a man cannot be emotional. It's not to say that a woman cannot be cerebral, but that is not their starting point. Too often, and that's usually, I'm sure when I said that, there was some people who said that, well, a woman could be and a man could be. Yeah, because we live in a society that tries to homogenize everyone. They want everyone to be the same. They want everybody to be just this gray, amorphous, shapeless blob of nothing. And no one can really celebrate and cultivate their differences. No one can really celebrate and cultivate their unique creative genius. When you start cultivating your unique creative genius, you're usually suppressed and told that you need to conform in some shape or fashion. And conform doesn't necessarily mean conform to standards of a man, nor conform to standards of a woman. It just means conform to standards of a person. And then we'll make statements like that, and we feel like we just said something really deep, but we don't really understand that we're stripping people of their genetic and gender assignments, their sexual assignments, which is important. That was given to you for a reason. You may have been a man in this lifetime, and you may have been a man in this lifetime because you need to understand manhood because you were a woman last time around, or vice versa. So now you end up messing up your lesson because you're not valuing everything that you came into the world with. Maybe you got small lips this time because you had big lips last time. So you need to see what it feels like to have small lips, so forth and so on. It's the denying of self that ruins you. It's the denying of self that causes you not to get your spiritual lessons. So then what happens is you'll be going through your entire life for months, for years, getting spiritual reading on top of spiritual reading. And you can't figure out the answer. And you say, man, nobody can help me. Nobody can help me. One of the first things you need to do is assess the parts of self. And that's why in my book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power, I share the information about the Ori. Sure, we can start understanding about Orisha. And sure, Orisha are a part of you. Sure, your Egun are a part of you. But your whole emotional, your consciousness, your aura, everything that makes you who and what you are in this lifetime is because of your Ori. So you would think that would be the first thing that you would study before anything. And I know that you hear me say all the time, Ori, 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 Ori. And you know one of the reasons why I talk about the Ori so much? because very few people talk about the Ori. Everybody wants to tell you about ancestors and Orisha, and there's thousands of Orisha. You can't learn all those Orisha. I mean, you could, but for what? What would be the ultimate point at the end of the day? You know, let's just kind of be honest about this for a reason. You know, for a minute, there are millions of gods on this planet that you can go and study and learn about. There are millions. Do you really have time to study even another 200 more gods than what you already know? But you can study self. As the Kemetic proverb says, the kingdom of heaven is within, and whomsoever shall seek it shall find it. Okay? So, knowing that the kingdom of heaven is within, then that's saying that that supreme being that you're searching for is you. Because, as I've said to you guys before, God does not live in heaven. Heaven lives inside of God. Okay? Because you cannot localize the supreme being, or Lojo Oni. Okay? The eminence. Remember I spoke to you guys about before? Olojo Oni is one of the names of Olodumare. And that speaks about his eminence. The fact that he's everywhere. Right? So that means you can't localize him to heaven. God doesn't live in heaven. It's just not going to work. Sorry. Heaven's a state of being. It's a state of mind. And hell is a state of being, right? It's an emotional state typically. Okay. Heaven usually deals with not the things that we know. Now the things that we don't know can put us into hell, but hell usually deals with some type of emotional prison, a chakra prison, whereas heaven usually deals with an awareness and a knowing in a moment, even if that knowing and that awareness was brought about by ecstasy, which was its propulsion, which of course we know typically starts with a feeling. Okay, but you can feel ecstatic just by getting a good grade on a test. You can feel ecstasy, or you can feel hell by the emotional disappointment of getting a bad grade on a test. Okay, but in any event, and all of this is related to our understanding of your guardian spirit, which is really what we're speaking about here today. And why it's important to bring up, and why it's important for me to speak on it today, is because we're speaking about the community of self. What are the different elements that make up who and what you are? And should they be worked with? Should they be ignored? Should we just default to them in terms of, oh, well, they're okay. They're taking care of themselves because I never had to deal with them before. Well, so are the Orisha. The Orisha getting fed without your rum and without your brown sugar and candy and whatever it is you were instructed to give them, cigars, okay? But the only one who's responsible truly for feeding your guardian spirit is you. If you do not feed your Ori in this lifetime, I'm going to give you a secret. Your Ori will not be fed. Okay? So some of you have decrepit Oris. Some of you have Oris that are strong like Irin, the Yoruba word for iron. Okay? So it's important. It's beyond important to make sure that you are constantly not only servicing your Egun, but servicing your Ori. When I did the live protection ritual with you all in our last show, and for those of you who have not checked that out, I suggest that you go back and listen to that show. But I gave you an order of invocation, and notice that it began with the Ori. All right? And Orisha were further down the line. I'm dealing with Ori, I'm dealing with Egun, I'm dealing with Olodumare and then Egun, and then I'm dealing with Orisha. And of course, then there's your Iyami and the other Imole. Okay? But I first have to start with Ori, because without the Ori, I have nothing. Without the understanding of my higher self, and some people define Ori as your guardian angel or your personal Orisha. I'm sure some of you have seen that said before. I give a full explanation of Ori. Matter of fact, there's a show that I did on Ori, which is one of the earlier shows. It might have been like the second show I did, something like that. But also in my book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power, there's a full explanation on Ori. You know, I've still have had from time to time some people asking me about Ori. And if you're a listener of this show, you should have gotten my book a long time ago. You should have been had the book. Okay, so I'm not gonna go in too much in things that I've already kind of really articulated in my work already. So I would suggest, if you don't have a copy of Grasping the Root of Divine Power, you get yourself a copy of Grasping the Divine Power. I have some people who are loyal listeners, and they listen every Friday, listen to archives. Those people need to have the book, okay? I made all of my services, and I make all my services very accessible financially. Okay, so the book is usually, because it sells steady, the price is usually around like $9, $10, something like that. Okay, which is very accessible. Okay, even for those of us who are feeling the pains of this recession, that really just means maybe you have to fast one day. You can fast 1 day or 2 days, and then you can get a copy of the book. Okay, for those who like to eat out and don't budget their food properly. But and the same thing goes for the classes. People are still asking, well, how can I join the classes? Information. Sometimes I don't know how people ask me that question still at this point. I need information on your classes. Give me a phone call. And I just want to put it out for everyone now. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to call you and speak to you about the classes. I really don't have time to do that. You know, and I don't mean to be mean in that sense, but if I mean, you got to understand that I am a active owl. So I have people who I work with, and I have readings I have to do, and then I have to carve out time to present this information to the community. All right. So be anyone's personal guru. I've told you guys that 150 times. Okay. I'm not going to sit on the phone and discuss with you your Odus and stuff. That's not going to happen. If you want that, then you can get a reading. And again, the readings are very accessible. For an hour-long reading, it only costs you a $50 shrine donation. Now, for those of you who've gotten readings by me before, you know that reading is worth a lot more than $50. And I'm not, like I always tell you, I do live like a normal life. I know how much stuff costs. Okay, so I know when I'm giving you a $50 reading, and for some, as you guys know, you know who you are, your reading has been like 4 hours. I've given people 4-hour readings for $50 or less. Okay, so I'm not gonna sit on the phone with anyone and talk to them about their issues or their Odus. That's not happening. So, you know, I don't mean to be mean about it, but that's a little something that I needed to share. I even have a 15-minute reading. That reading is like $20. I have a 30-minute reading. I think that one's $35. So, I mean, I've even broken it down. The 15-minute reading is really for people who are getting ready to be, or who desire for me to do an initiation for them, or consecration, or some level of spiritual work for them. And the 15 minutes is just for us to do a pre-ritual consultation in terms of making sure we're on schedule with things, we're moving with the right Orisha, or what actually is the issue, and what is the prescription that I need to follow through to, you know, repair whatever is going on, or to keep whatever's going on if it's something good. Okay, but that 15-minute reading can also be used, you know, so from $20 to $50, there's an option. All right, so I'm bringing all of this up, not as a gripe or anything like that, because it's not that big a deal. I'm bringing it up for you to understand the power and the nature of your own personal guardian. No, Haru Yuya Assaan-ANU is not your personal spiritual guardian. That's not going to happen. You can forget that. I am your instructor, and for some, I'm not even your instructor. You just check me out amongst a host of maybe 20, 30 other shows that you tune into. Just something that you appreciate information. That's cool too. You know, everyone doesn't have to be my student. I just hope that everyone who's getting something valuable out of listening is paying it forward. You know, please don't hoard information. If I say something that really impacts you and really helps your life, you know, share it with the next person. You know, tell them what's really been working for you, you know, and don't be afraid to tell them that you got it from me. You know, it's always funny to me when I look at some of the social networks and I see my information with no reference to me. And people will be like, wow, that's deep. Wow, you know, and then the person who posted will be like, oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, but I never out anybody. It's just whatever. It's no big deal. I'll come up with new stuff. But, in any event, support the cause, support the movement, support our new nation. We're doing some wonderful work and we're raising up people, and we need your support. That's straight up and true. I will support you, support me, but I can't be your personal guardian. However, you do have an entity that is way more knowledgeable and way more powerful than I am, by the name of your Ori Impori. Your Ori Impori. And that particular energy is your personal guardian. Okay? Now remember, again, your Ori is responsible for everything. Your aura, your movement, your style, your cadence, your family, who you were born into, your social caste. This is all a product of the Ori that you chose when you were in Orun, before you knelt before Olodumare, and you received the divine breath when you were kneeling. So you received that, and that was blown into you. And you picked an Ori from the potter's shop. Okay? And that potter's shop, very similar to Anubis or Anpu, as we have in Kemet, where he's working on the potter's wheel, forming man. Very similar concept. Okay? In the Bible, you are the potter and I am the clay. Mold me. Right? So it's that Ori that molds your destiny. And it is your character, or what we call Iwa. Iwa is character. Iwa Rere is good character, not Iwa Puele. That's something different. As I explained again in Grasping of the Divine Power. Iwa Puele more deals with our relationship with the earth. Okay, but not with our relationship with the divine or our relationship with our higher self. Okay, so you have Iwa Rere, which is good character. Iwa Rere brings out the greatest aspects of the Ori. When your character is compromised or maligned in some sense, form, or fashion, your destiny is compromised in some sense, form, or fashion. You cannot separate your destiny from your character. You can't. It's impossible. It's just the way it works. Sorry to tell you that. Now, that doesn't mean that we define character by religious and moral standards. No, that's not how you define character. You define character by your integral structure. What you are at your integral roots. For instance, what I am at my integral roots is a teacher. Okay, so I'm always teaching. It's not just on the show. I mean, in my household, my family members is almost, we can't watch a movie without me doing a movie breakdown. Like, unless it's just got to be something that's hilariously funny that shuts me up. But I don't really laugh at, too much stuff too hard. There's only a couple of comedians that just could get me like that and make me shut up. So for the most part, whatever we're watching is some type of breakdown. And I probably, in some senses, I'm probably a killjoy in that sense, because I make everything an academic pursuit and everybody's pulling out notebooks and taking notes. But it is what it is. That is me staying true to my character. Okay, it's just like, a movie or a play. In a movie or a play, you have what you call characters, and they all have a role and a part to play. Now, if someone is the leading character, it would be inappropriate for them to say, you know what, I'm going to be the orchestra leader, and I'm going to lead the band for the sound for the actual play. That person would be out of character. Okay. Now, are they doing a good thing? Sure. Somebody needs to be the band leader. So their consciousness will tell them, oh, it's okay to do this because you're still doing something good, right? It's about your intentions that count, not about what you're actually doing. No, what they're doing is called sin. That's actually what sin is. S-I-N, sin. Sin is disobedience to your divine purpose. Okay. Sin is not, cursing, if you want to call it a curse, because this whole language I'm using right now is one long curse. Excuse my English. But in any event, sin is just when you're disobedient to purpose. Now, if we understand it from a biblical theological perspective, sin was always disobedience to God. Okay, so God would lay down certain laws, especially in the Old Testament. And if you broke one law the way it was designed, you broke them all, which was too difficult for everyone. So then Christ came and said, look, well, I'm going to fulfill the law. And now we're in the dispensation of grace. So if you break one law, you just ask for forgiveness. Okay, but sin has always been not going along or not complying with your divine purpose. So for those of you who know you're supposed to be doing something and you're suffering from cognitive dissonance where you know one thing but you're doing another, you are sinful. Now, a sinful person destroys their destiny, because they are warping and tainting their character. All right, and this is how you discharge your Ori. You discharge your Ori through bad character. You weaken your Ori through bad character. You strengthen your Ori through Iwa, Rere, good character. Okay, and again, good character is playing your position. PYP, play your position, playing your role. Okay, so I'm here, I'm teaching. Next Friday, you're not going to have me. I'm not going to be talking to you about some reality TV show and how this one went off and turned up and threw a plate across the room and I couldn't believe it. OMG, LOL, LMBAO. That's not going to happen, because that would be out of character for me. No, I could probably do that, and I bet you my blog talk listens would shoot up and I would see some gain. And this would tempt me into the sin of acting outside of my character, because I would see some type of earthly reward, right? Well, let's say what I did every show, as I called out different Babalawos and different religions and systems and things that I disagreed with them, right? Oh, this one's phony and this one, that. It'd be like, that shock jock type radio. I could do shock jock African religion radio, right? And people would tune in, right? But I would be sinful, not because it's disrespectful, not because it's offensive, but because that is not a part of my integral structure. So I would be acting without integrity, or acting outside of my character, not playing my position. Like they say, the life is just a stage and we're all actors on it, right? Well, actors are also characters. What is your character? What is your role? You tap into this and know this by not only doing readings. That's why we have what's called itas, right? And the itas, of course, are done when a child, or 3 days really after that child is born. You have that reading done, so you can find out, how does this child touch the ground? What happens? We call it the Assaan-ANU. And I think it's very important and critical to mention that, in many of our African traditions, we have that custom of whispering into the baby's ear when it comes through and asking it, are you the one? Okay, because we acknowledge and we understand the conditions in which we are currently living in and the conditions in which we are reproducing in. So we acknowledge that each child has a special and unique role within our village, within our communities, within our clan, within our family, within our nation. So we ask them, are you the one? Are you the one who is maybe going to be the Moses of our clan? Are you the one who is perhaps going to fill a certain role or play a certain position that is currently needed in our clan? But we do make that clear acknowledgement that each child, each individual, each returned Egun comes through with their own individualized purpose, because they have their own individualized breath of life. Okay, so Olodumare, Olojo Oni, does not come through. The Supreme Being does not make an appearance and go through all of the work and struggle of negating itself to come here and do nothing. That wouldn't make sense, now would it? Okay, so I'm speaking about the Eshe and Taye, right? And this is a reading that some may be familiar with, that is done 3 days after the child is born. Now let's break down the words here. We have Eshe, right? ESC means foot, okay? Dealing with the struggle as well. And then we have Aye. Aye means earth, not just the earth, but the earth's crust. So some people will tell you sometimes that Aye is earth, but that is incorrect. Aye is earth's crust, or the soil that we walk upon. Onile is the earth. Okay, so the Assaan-ANU, that reading that is done, which is similar to the Ita, which basically tells us what this child is here, who it's here to be, who it's here for, what is the purpose, the divine purpose that is going to be served or rendered forth, is done on that third day. So Eshe is foot, Aye is earth soil. Eshe Taye literally means walking upon or treading upon the soil. Okay, because it is considered that after that third day that the child emerges from its mother's womb, that it has now, in some ways, shape, form, or fashion, manifested its own character. That's why it becomes much easier to name at that point. Okay, so that reading, Eshe and Taye, deals with our transformation through the earth. Whenever we're dealing with the concept of feet in Yoruba, we're dealing with the idea of struggle and transformation. Struggle and feet are signified by the same word, eshe, which of course is the southern part of our Ori Opon, which is also ruled over by the element earth, and the Orisha Yemoja, and the sacred Odu of Ed. Now, recently I broke down in our new spiritual training group some of information about that Odu of Ed and how that Odu relates itself to also Od, Ed, as well as Odu. Okay, those come from the same root. So, of course, interesting enough, I've told you before that Odu means womb, right? And Ed is ruled over or is patron to the Orisha Yemoja, Yeye Omo Eja. Okay, so here we're dealing with, again, this concept and this idea of a unique thing being brought forth, a unique thing being brought out, but more importantly, being brought forth and brought out through struggle. As our dear Marlimu Buruti often says, struggle builds character. Okay, so if you've ever seen a child born, you see the struggle that is involved. The struggle that is involved for that child to come forth, because it fights to come into the world, and most likely it will fight when it leaves the world. Okay, and in all that builds Iwa. Now, interesting enough, we're dealing with that feminine energy of Ed, Odu, Edi. And then when we go into the West, we have it ruled over by the sacred Odu of Oyeku. Oyeku is short for Oyeye Iku. Oyeye Iku. Okay, now what do we have there? We have Yeye, which is mother, Iku, which is death. Oyeku is the mother. I've often told you it's the science of death, but more specifically, it is the spirit of the mother of death. Okay, similar to our Oba energy. And like I've told you guys before, Oba, who carried the Siths, which are those curved knives, which are signified by the crescent moon. Okay, this is where the Grim Reaper character received its insignia, or its tool. If you ever look at the Sith, the Grim Reaper carries the Sith. Okay, because it's harvesting ripened Oris. It's harvesting ripened souls. Because when you get to a certain point in your growth, you're considered to be seasoned or ripened, or like we say, I've grown like a fine wine, or aged like a fine wine, and now it's time for you to be harvested by the Sith. Okay, now, I know you're going to say the Sith. That sounds like some Star Wars stuff with the Sith Lord. Well, do you think they do that stuff on accident? And they walk around with the hoods just like the Grim Reaper and everything. But this is the energy of Oba, and more importantly of the West, of Oyeku, Oyeye Iku. Okay, and in that Odu we have Osun, but we also have our Egun, we have Olokun, we have Oya. Okay, these are those dark energies that exist there. But again, dealing with the concept of the personal guardian, right? So when we have this Essentaye, we receive this personal and distinct and unique information, because it is now said that our struggle, our new struggle on earth begins. That's why it's Esse, which is foot, or struggle, and Aye, which is earth. So the new struggle on earth begins to develop the character that you came here to be. And that is what that Ita, or what that reading tells us. This is the character for our village. This is the position that this person is meant to play. And this is the struggle that must be placed in front of them to bring out the greatest aspects of that character. Without that struggle, you get no defined, developed, and cultivated Ori. Okay? That's why life is not just us sitting on a sofa. Life is a struggle. It really, truly, well, let me say, the cultivation and the evolution of what we know to be as life is a struggle. Life itself struggles for nothing. Okay? But our understanding and our cultivating and evolving of it is that sweet struggle which brings us character. So now I've hit you with the theory of what we're speaking about in this particular segment. And now it's time to offer you some practical techniques for communicating and charging the Ori. But before I give techniques, I always like to give the background theory. So that way, when you're doing the spiritual work, you'll have a greater connection to what you're doing. You'll have a more intimate connection because you see or you feel or you know exactly what you're doing step by step. Okay, so like I said, as promised, we'll get into some techniques, and we're going to do some simple stuff here, right? This can get much more involved, but we'll deal with that. For those who are registered students, I will give you actually further techniques, and then it goes even deeper in phase 3 when we're invoking our guardians. Not only will we be dealing with the seals of Solomon, but we'll also, in Solomon, remember, Solomon, son of man. That's what the name Solomon means. So when you're dealing with the seals of Solomon, or opening the seals of Solomon, you're dealing with just opening up the pineal, the Ori Iwaju. Okay? And, of course, you can work with the seals of Solomon now. Just have them around you. Have them in your home. Things like that. And, and I kind of got into the whole opening of the 7 seals. There was a show that I did about that, the 7 seals and the number 7, and how the number 7 is actually a trap. So, if you want to look into that more, you can. But we're going to do something really simple. First thing you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a nice, mat. You can even use a yoga mat, but it's preferable if you use a straw mat. Okay, use something organic underneath you. So it's preferable to use a straw mat because it's not only better to have organic things underneath you, it's better to have a form of wood, earth element underneath you. Okay, so if you could do it in soil, that's fine too, but if not, a mat would be best. And you're going to be working with a couple of energies. One being Ifa, because remember, when you're dealing with the primal emanations from Olodumare, you're dealing with Orumila or Ifa, you're dealing with Oduruwa, and you're dealing with Obatala. Okay, but these are, if they're emanations from Olodumare, that also means that they're emanations from your Ori. Okay, so we deal with Ifa, and notice I'm not saying Orumila, because when we're communicating with the guardian, right, Ifa is not an Orisha, nor is Ifa an entity. Ifa is the words that Orumila shares with us, that are given to Orumila from Olodumare. So Ifa, a lot of people say, Ifa and Orumila are the same person. That's not actually correct. Ifa is actually the words. Ifa is the corpus. Ifa is the information. And Orumila is the messenger or the deliverer of that information, or the holder, the witness to what that information is. But we want to deal with Ifa. So the first thing we'll do, we'll kneel on our mat. And very similar to, people have seen Muslims pray before. So that same kneeling position that they pray in is how you're going to kneel on your mat. If you're unable to get into a kneeling position because of any type of physical disease, then you can also sit. But if you want, sit on a stool that is on the mat. Okay? And you're just going to say simply Ifaro, Ifaro. Okay? And you're going to say that 21 times. Ifaro, 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 Ifaro. And that means Ifa, come to me, or Ifa, descend. Then you're gonna say Elah, Elaro, Elaro, Elaro. You're gonna do that 21 times. Now you've probably heard Elaro before, especially those of you who've gotten readings from me before. It is one of the invocations that I do prior to or after calling Ifa. Okay, it is an invocation that Babalaos use when we want to begin to communicate with Orumila. Okay, but you're going to say Elaro. Now, you're also going to call forth to Oduduwa. I'm sorry, not Oduduwa, to Olokun. Okay, and you're going to say Bionibi Lapa Okun. Bionibi Lapa Okun. Which means if you are in the ocean, and you're going to say, so you'll say, Bioni bialapa okun koro mawa. Koro mawa. Please come. I'll say it slowly. Bioni bi lapa okun koro mowa. Bioni Nibi lapa okun koro mowa. If you are in the ocean, please come. You see? And then we'll say Obatala ro. Obatala ro. Obatala ro. You're going to say that 21 times. And you're going to say Nibi oju timowa Obatala. Nibi oju timowa. Nibi oju timowa. Which means in the east where the sun rises, Obatala. And you're going to say after that Koromubo, which means please come. Obatala nibi ojo timowa Koromubo. Obatala, where the sun rises, please come. Okay? So then you're going to say Tete ni koro mowaela. Tete ni koro mowaela. Come urgently, ela. Come urgently. Okay? This is a basic invocation. You see? And what you're doing is you're going to do this while kneeling. Okay? And what you're doing is you're pulling the different aspects. You're pulling the different aspects of your Ori or your higher self from different places. And at that moment, you can begin to speak. It is now present. What you can always do is take your Obi and you can cast Obi in that moment to ensure that your Ori is present. Okay, and all you have to do is just say to your Ori, if you are here and if you are present with me, I ask that in this reading, you present yourself as Alafia. Okay, and that means if you get 4 white up, the Ori is present, and you can go ahead and have the dialogue or the conversation that you desire to have. Okay, now, what we're going to do to charge our own Ori, and you can also do this when you're doing an Ori cleanse as well. You're going to get yourself a bowl of water. Okay, and in that water, I want you to mix, if you can get some Ifa dust, which is Ierosun. Put a little bit of Ierosun into it. If you cannot get your hands on Ierosun, you can also mix into it several things here. And it's going to keep it light. So you're going to use clean water. Okay. And then what you can mix in that is moringa leaves. You can get those because you can order those. Okay. A little moringa leaves. And you're going to put that into the water. If you cannot get moringa leaves, so I'm going to even give you an out on this one, get yourself some hyssop. If you cannot get hyssop, you can use sage or rue or rosemary. Okay, there's no excuse now. You've been given all the options. No excuse why you can't do this. Okay, so you'll put that into the water, and what I want you to do is with the middle finger of your right hand, you're going to trace 4 vertical lines. Okay, but you're going to push upward. So you're going to push your finger away from you and push upward. From you and push it away from you. Okay, so it's going to go outward from you. You're going to do that starting at the top. You're going to make 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to move your finger to the left a little bit, and you're going to do it again. And then you're going to say Mojuba Eji Ogbe. Mojuba Eji Ogbe. Okay, now once you do that, you're going to take that same water and you're going to touch your Ori Iwaju, your Ori Atari, and your Ori Ipako. You should know where all of those points are because I described them in Grasping the Root of Divine Power. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take some of that same water and you're going to touch it to your tongue. Okay? And you're going to trace that same Odu of Eji Okbe on your tongue. Okay? Now, once you trace that on your tongue, you then take that water that you then, you stirred up, and you take a good amount of it. You take some of the leaves that are in it, and you take them in between, like if you were taking a pinch of the leaves, and I want you to sprinkle those on the top of your head. So you take those leaves and you sprinkle them on the top of your head. Okay? And you're going to say, Ori Nikan Loto Alasin Boro Okun. Bi Mobalo Wo. Orini Orofun. Orimi Iwo Ni. Oripele. Oripelio. Okay? Now you can rewind if you need to hear that again. But it's Ori Nikan Loto Alashan Barokun Bimiu Moba Lowo Ori Ni Orofun Ori Mi Iwo Ni Ori Pele Yo. Okay? So you're going to say that. And now, in doing this, you're actually charging the Ori. You're charging it with Ifa. Okay? Which is obviously making if you're charging with Ifa, you're making the Ori more wise. So what you'll do after this now is you're going to take that same Odu, right? And you're going to take a plate. You can either use cornmeal. It's best if you can use sand, or if you can use Eyerosun, which is the number one thing that you can use. You're going to mark that same Odu of Eji Ogbe into that plate. Okay? You're going to mark the Odu of Eji Ogbe into that plate. And then what you're going to do after that, you're going to take a white sheet or a white cloth, whatever you can get your hands on, and you're going to put it around you. So you're going to have the plate in front of you. You can sit cross-legged, and you're going to put a sheet over you so your whole body is covered with that sheet, but you're sitting upright. And what you're going to be saying to yourself is, Orimopeo, Orimopeo, Orimopeo. Say that 3 times. Then you're going to say, Elaro, 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 which means Ela, spirit of purity, come to me, or come down, descend on me. Ela. Okay? So this is what you'll do. This is actually charges the Ori. You're going to stay under this sheet for at least no less than 20 minutes. Okay? And you're quiet. You're in a quiet space. And you have that Odu active now. No music, no incense, no candles, none of that good stuff. You are the candle in this exercise. You're the candle. And that Odu is charging your Ori inside of that sheet. Nothing will get into that sheet. That's why you're using a white sheet. And nothing will get out of that sheet. That's why you're using a white sheet. So you're creating this enclosed vacuum of Ashe through an Odu. Okay? And that's what you're going to use to charge and communicate with your guardian angel or your guardian spirit. And you will see amazing results from this. If you could do this at least once a month, that's excellent. Tonight is a full moon. So, but in the event, you don't have to wait till the full moon, because the Ori is older than the moon. Okay? So, that's a very simple exercise. As you notice, I gave you more theory than I did actual activity. There's a reason for that. Okay? It's very important that you understand what you're doing. And for more evolved activity, because we get deeper into this actual charging the Ori is very important, join up in the classes. November 1st and 2nd, I will be doing a special in honor of Day of the Dead. So the classes will be greatly reduced. If you've been waiting to get in on the classes or to get a reading, that will be the time to do it. I'm just going to give you that warning, because some of you guys, I run the specials and you don't respond to the specials, but then later you come back and get a class and you end up, paying more than what you really needed to. The classes are cheap. I know that. That's why nobody really sweats it. And when I say a special, it's like, but if you can get it cheaper, right? So November 1st and 2nd, I'll be doing that special. Look out for that in our new newsletter. If you haven't signed up for that new newsletter, you need to sign up for it so you know when these specials are coming and how much they'll be. And also the coupon codes are only in the newsletters. I won't be giving the coupon codes in emails or anything like that. You'll have to be signed up for the newsletter to get the coupon codes for discounts for the readings and for classes and things like that. But with that said, that is our segment. It has been a pleasure and it's been an honor to serve. And I'll see you next time. Make sure you sign in and check us out this Sunday, 1 p.m. Anu Asafo. Call in with your questions for Baba Baruti. And I'm sure it will be a wonderful time. I'll be listening. Hotel.
We thank you for your listening support and urge you to become an active participating member of the ANU Order. Please be sure to follow our Ustream broadcast, which can be found at ustream.tv/channel/enlightenment-transformation. That is USTREAM.TV/channel/enlightenment /ENLIGHTTENMENT-transformation. Also, please be sure to sign up for the ANU newsletter, which can be found by going to anunation.org. That is ANUNATION.org. If you'd like to become a sponsor or an on-air guest on this or any of our other broadcasts, please be sure to contact us at questions@anunation.org. That is the word questions at anunation.org. Thank you for your continued support and be well.